The voicemail didn't sound like fear at first. It sounded like irritation. A woman's voice, calm, controlled, almost annoyed, cut through the static. "I told you, stop calling this number. He's not here anymore." There's a pause. You can hear something faint in the background, like a door creaking, or maybe something dragging across the floor. Then, just before the line goes dead, she whispers, softer this time, "And no one's going to find him." People who knew Sandra Bridewell would tell you the same thing. She didn't look like someone capable of anything dark. She was composed, polite, and always seemed to know exactly what to say. The kind of woman who could walk into a room and immediately take control without raising her voice. But beneath that calm surface, there was something else, something tightly wound. Her husband, Jim Bridewell, was the opposite, easygoing, friendly, the type who trusted people too quickly. Friends said he adored Sandra completely, blindly. If there were cracks in their marriage, he never showed them, at least, not until the day he vanished without a trace. When Jim was first reported missing, nothing about it made sense. His car was still parked at home. His phone had been left behind. Even his wallet was sitting on the kitchen counter, exactly where he always kept it. It wasn't like him to disappear, not without telling someone, not without leaving even the smallest clue. Sandra, on the other hand, didn't seem panicked. She called the police, yes, but her tone was measured, almost rehearsed. She told them Jim had probably just needed space, that he'd been stressed, that he might have left town for a few days, but there was something off about the way she said it, like she was trying to convince herself, just as much as everyone else. Investigators started with the house. It looked normal at first, plans clean, organized, almost too perfect. But when they stepped into the bedroom, that's when things started to feel wrong. The bed had been stripped, not messy, not disturbed, just emptied, like someone had carefully erased any sign that it had been used. And then there was the smell, faint but unmistakable, metallic, sharp. One officer later described it as the kind of scent you don't forget once you've encountered it before. It wasn't strong enough to scream danger, but it lingered just enough to make everyone uneasy. Sandra told them she had cleaned the room, said she'd been trying to keep busy, trying not to think about Jim being gone. She even laughed a little while explaining it like it was a harmless habit, something she'd always done. But the timing didn't sit right. Why deep clean a bedroom when your husband is missing? When asked about their relationship, she hesitated, just for a second. Then she smiled, said everything was fine, perfect, actually. But that hesitation, that tiny crack in her composure, was enough to make investigators start digging deeper. They spoke to neighbors next. Most hadn't noticed anything unusual. No loud arguments, no signs of trouble. But one neighbor mentioned something strange, a noise, late at night. Not a scream, not exactly. More like something heavy being dropped, followed by silence. And then there was the garage. Sandra had locked it, said there was nothing in there worth seeing. But when officers finally got inside, they noticed the floor had been recently washed, not just cleansed, hard enough to leave faint streak marks under the light. Forensics started piecing things together slowly. Tiny traces, almost invisible, but they were there. In the bedroom, in the garage, on a set of towels that Sandra claimed she had just used for cleaning. It wasn't enough to tell the full story, but it was enough to suggest something violent had happened inside that house. Sandra's behavior didn't change. If anything, she became even calmer. She answered every question, offered every detail, sometimes before being asked. It was almost like she had already anticipated the investigation, like she had rehearsed this moment over and over again in her head. Then came the financial records. At first glance, they seemed ordinary, but when investigators looked closer, they noticed something unsettling. Transfers, quiet, subtle movements of money, accounts being adjusted, almost like someone was preparing for a future, without Jim in it. And still, Sandra insisted he would come back. She even left his belongings untouched in certain areas of the house, like she wanted people to believe she was waiting. But there was a contradiction there, because in other places, it felt like she had already erased him completely. The breakthrough didn't come from the house, it came from the past. As investigators dug deeper into Sandra's history, they found something disturbing. Patterns, relationships that ended abruptly, stories that didn't quite line up. And then, a name surfaced. Someone connected to her from years before. Someone who had also disappeared under strange circumstances. Suddenly, Jim's case didn't feel isolated anymore. It felt rehearsed. When confronted with this, Sandra didn't deny it. She didn't panic. Instead, she leaned back, almost relaxed, like the weight of the secret wasn't a burden, anymore. It was a release. And that's when the story began to shift. She started talking, but not in a confession, more like fragments, pieces of something darker. She spoke about control, about betrayal, about how some people deserve to be removed. Her words were calm, deliberate, but they carried something chilling beneath them. The truth, when it finally came together, wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, calculated. Sandra had planned it. Every detail, the argument, the moment it turned violent, the cleanup, the careful removal of evidence, even the way she reported Jim missing, it had all been part of a script she had written long before anyone realized what was happening. And Jim, he never left that house alive. In the end, there was no single moment where everything fell apart for Sandra Bridewell. No dramatic breakdown, no emotional confession, just a slow unraveling of a truth she thought she had buried perfectly. Because the scariest part wasn't what she did, it was how calmly she lived with it afterward. And if that voicemail had never been found, no one might have ever known what was hiding behind her silence.